Okay, so page 118, we're at the paragraph on the Yachol Adat et Hashem. Second last paragraph on the page, correct? Okay, and the Yachol Adat et Hashem kemo shani yodeya inyanei madah. I can know God in the same way I know sciences, so to speak, or at least people think that way. Yachol Adat et Hashem afilu b'madriga shel Har Sinai. I can know God even on the level of Har Sinai, Shehi Madriga Nukam Yod, which is something very deep. Aval Avraham Avinu Yodei et Hashem od yoter amok mikol ze. Avraham Avinu knows God even on a level much deeper. Vayera elav Hashem. Hashem appeared to him. Lachen Avraham Avinu nikra Avinu. This is one of the reasons that we call him our father. Ki hu masar lanu et hayecholet ladat et Hashem kemo sheyeled yodei et horav. He gave us, he transferred to us, we inherited from him the capability of knowing God the way a child knows his parents. Right, so we were talking yesterday, so we know that Gedolah Hachnasat Ochim Mikabalat Pnei Shechina, we know that from Avraham Avinu. How did Avraham Avinu know that, right? So for him, it wasn't even a question because the way he knew God, it was just clear and obvious to him, right? So on the level of Har Sinai, so it's talking, so it's a Shiloh. Oisik mitzvah, potim in a mitzvah. Which one do you do? You're involved in one mitzvah, do you drop this one to do another one? Right? But when you really know Hashem, there's what do you call it? It was clear to him that Gedolah Hachnasat Ochim. Right? One of the interesting things is that, so you know that Pikuach Nefesh Doche et Shabbat, right? Right? You're familiar with that, right? So the Gemara makes like a whole explanation as to why. Okay? Because there are 3 mitzvot that are Yaharig Ve'al Ya'avor, that you have to give your life for. Unless it's the time of Shmad, in which case we have to be ready to give our lives for anything, right? But so it's on the level of, Har Sinai that you need to explain, yes, why is Pikuach Nefesh Doche et Shabbat, right? If you would really know the Torah, thank you. If you would really know the Torah, like on the level of Vayera Elav Hashem, it wouldn't even be a Shiloh. What I'm saying, that if you would really know the Torah on the level of Vayera Elav Hashem, it wouldn't be a Shiloh. Hi, Chani.
Hi, how are you?
Baruch Hashem, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Very neat.
Have a seat. Page 118. So we're talking about knowing God, right? Knowing God in through your mind versus knowing God through your essence being, right? So in fact, in halacha, right? Like it says that if Chas v'Sholom, there's an emergency of pikuach nefesh in shul on Shabbos, right? So it says, why? Sorry, you can close the window. You can close the window if you don't want. I don't mind. Close it for a while. If it gets hot, then you open it. Okay. So in Halacha, it says specifically that Dafke, the Rav, should be the one to do whatever is necessary to save that person's life. Do you know why? Like in case of Pikuach Nefesh, right? So the Rav is somebody, Chas v'Sholom, you need to call an ambulance, you need to take care of something, right? You need to save a person's life. So it says in Shulchan Aruch, it says clearly, Dafke, the Rav should be the one to do the Chilul Shabbos. Why?
Because he understands deep enough the reasons.
No, because if the Rav tells somebody else to do it, so somebody might think that it's not really 100% okay. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Somebody might think it's not 100% okay to do it, and that's why the Rav is not doing it. In which case, in some future event where they might have to, they might be the person on in that situation to save the person's life. Chani, come sit on this side, please, okay?
Okay, sure.
So somebody might delay and think that, it wasn't really okay, that the Rav didn't do it. The Rav didn't do it himself, so maybe it wasn't really so and 100% okay. So the point is that, it's okay. So the point is that because people are relating the Torah very, very much intellectually, right? So therefore, you got to make sure that people get it straight. That you should know pikuach nefesh derech Shabbos. Don't have any doubts about it, right? But if you would have a really deep understanding about it, it wouldn't be a question in the first place. It says that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov kept Kol HaTorah Kula even before the Torah was given. Right? You're familiar with that. I'm sure you've heard that, right? Question is, how did they know? How did they know to keep the whole Torah? Right? It even goes so far as to say that even Erev Tavshilim, they were Mekayim, which is a Derabonon, right? So how did they know? So Chassidus is explained that they had reached the level of being what's called a Merkava. Merkava is a chariot, right? But they were a Merkava to Kadosh Baruch Hu. Now, what's Pshat Merkava? Merkava, a chariot, doesn't move on its own. It does exactly what the rider wants it to do, right? So they were so totally given over to the Rebbeinu Shalom that they already instinctually, Shai, you can try the door, I think I may have heard enough. They instinctually, thank you, they instinctually knew what you're supposed to do, right? Okay? So that's what he means over here when he says, Vayeva Elav Hashem. In other words, thank you, that there was this clear, deep knowledge of God. V'yeshkan od nekuda muka, second last line on 118. Ne'emar vayera elav Hashem. It says Hashem appeared to him. Rak elav. Only to him. כשאני עסוק בלדבר על טוב ורע, when I'm busy talking about good and evil, אני פונה לכולם. I'm turning to everyone. I want everyone's attention. כשדבר מה אסור, when something is prohibited, who asur l'kulam, is prohibited to everybody. Everybody should know about it, right? But the essence, one of the essential things of Yiddishkeit, page 119, Ikar Hanyan Shel Avraham Avinu, the main Inyan of Avraham Avinu, Hanyan Shel Torah Shebal Peh, which is the Inyan of Torah Shebal Peh, הוא שריבונו של עולם מדבר ממש רק אליי. In Torah Shebal Peh, Hashem is speaking to each one of us individually. Now that means that, like for example, you have a machloket between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, right? And the Gemara says, Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. Both of them are speaking the words of the living God. And even though we paskin, we rule, now it's the door of Yishayim. Even though we paskin, in some cases like Beit Hillel, in some cases like Beit Shammai, right? But they're both speaking the words of the living God. Thank you. We need another book? Yeah. No, we have. There's one down there. There's one. No. Oh, do you have another one? Okay. So how could they both be speaking the words of the living God? How could they both, so to speak, be right? And it's true we paskin one way, right? That's the decision of the Chachamim. Okay, so what are we going to do? It's not going to be eeny, meeny, miny, mo. It's not going to be that today I feel like doing like Beis Hillel, tomorrow I feel like doing Beis Shammai. This is the halacha. But they're both telling the truth. They're both speaking the words of the living God. So is it because their intelligence is different? No, what Reb Shlomo is saying over here is that Torah Shebal Peh is every person has a very personal connection. As if you have, first of all, you have to have a Emunat Chachamim. You understand that you have to have a Emunat Chachamim, but in other words, you have to be sort of in the system, so to speak. Okay, you can't just sit there and paskin from your stomach, like my stomach thinks this is kosher, or something like that. So you have to be in it. You have to be Talmud Chacham, etc. But still, the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to guide, like Beit Shammai is going to guide Beit Shammai to Beit Shammai is connecting with him in a certain way that this is what the Torah is saying. Beit Hillel is connecting in a certain, and also in his personal way, and he's saying, this is what the Torah is saying. And Hashem is communicating with each of them. Okay? Now, all the big Rosh Yeshiva, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, they all had a parshat. Now, ask a question. Why did Reb Aaron Kotler, why did he need Reb Moshe Feinstein to be his parshat? Why did the Lubavitcher Rebbe need a Rav in the community to be his parshat? And you have learned better than him. You knew more Torah than him. Okay? Because it's a different kind of connection with Torah, that the parshat somehow or other has a different kind of special siyata d'shmaya to know this is the way we need to paskin. Understand? The big Rosh Yeshiva can argue and say, why did you paskin this way? I could have come up with another solution, right? And he would be right. The only thing is that if he would come up with, if the parshat would have said the other solution, the Rosh Yeshiva could then also say to him, why did you paskin this way? I can argue against this and find you a reason to think differently. Okay? And both arguments would be fine, right? And perfectly valid. So that's why even the Rosh Yeshiva, when it comes to making a decision, they would turn to a pasuk.
Did every pasuk have another pasuk? Did Moshe Feinstein have a pasuk?
He had, first of all, Reb Moshe Feinstein. Okay? He didn't make decisions on his own. He made decisions based on all the shalas with shuvas that were relevant to this particular shaila. Understand? Okay, and there are ways of deciding, like, like, are we going to go with the machmirim, or are we going to be mekel, are we this, is that? It's a whole system of knowledge which I cannot tell you much about. I didn't get there yet. Okay, but that's why all the big rabbonim, they, besides getting smicha, they also need to do what's called shimush. They have to have on-the-job experience, sort of like, not in like apprenticeship with like, for example, there were shilas after the Second World War concerning agunot, women that were like left stranded because they were engaged before the war began, and then the war came. And they didn't have any idea that their chosn survived, did he not survive, and even if he didn't survive, there very often weren't witnesses around, and so on. And there were a lot of them in that kind of situation. So you need somebody like really big, like a Moshe Feinstein, who can deal with this, to find ways to permit these women to get married. But it's a whole chokhmah and knowledge in itself, which I cannot tell you how it works exactly. Okay, but Reb Shlomo once told us, like, they are shilas that he would go to Reb Moshe Feinstein and ask, because he knew that Reb Moshe Feinstein was never going to just say no, just like that. There were cases where he once asked a shaila in a particular case, and it was like, like the straight halacha was not complicated, but the situation was very, very complicated. And he went to Reb Moshe in the morning. Reb Moshe called him up and gave him the answer. And Reb Shlomo says he knows for sure that Reb Moshe was up the whole night with that shaila, and didn't Stam say, oh, yes, no, like, Shira, can you get the door, please? I think Malka is coming in. Yeah. Is there another book there? I think. Is there? No? Okay, so they'll share one.
Wait, there's two more.
Yeah, Malka.
Two more.
Okay. Oh, it's Jordana. Can you come sit down? It's just that I saw the hair walking by, and there's another girl, Malka, that also comes in with frizzy hair. Okay, so there's, for example, there's a concept of Dracheha Dalchei Noam. The ways of the Torah are pleasant. 119. Yeah. The ways of the Torah are pleasant. Understand? It's there are and you should know, by the way, that there are situations in which, like, for example, the certain shalas, you better go to a huge Talmud Chacham, because if the person is not, if the Rav is not like a really big Talmud Chacham, the chances are that they're going to just be machmer when they don't have to be machmer. Okay.
I'm reading a biography that came out in the past year about the seventh Lubavitcher Rebbe, and a whole part or chapter is dedicated to his relationship with Rabbi Soloveitchik. So
Are you reading Telushkin's book?
Yes. Anyway, the the Rebbe had a particular stance on adoption, and he had
Right.
issues with it. So, and Rabbi Soloveitchik was
pro
yeah,
adoption.
and he pro to just finding like halachic ways to make it work. So someone asked Rabbi Soloveitchik, like, how could you have? He had opposing opinions in a lot of things, but how could you specifically have a opposing opinion in this? And he said, "Who do you think the Rebbe sends the exceptions and the rules to?
Who do you think?
Who do you think the Rebbe sends the exceptions to the rules to? Like he sends them to me when that comes.
Sends them to me, yeah.
So like, and I feel like that's working within halacha.
Right. You got that? Like, you know, and
I think what's
speak up.
well, I think it's I'm hesitating because this is a difficult situation that you are presenting here. Saying, on the one hand, every person should be striving to have their own personal relationship with Hashem and having their own Bas Torah Shabbal Peh.
For sure.
So in which they are relating to Hashem and doing what they understand Hashem, how Hashem is speaking to me. On the other hand, if you don't have the Chokhmat,
that's right.
Not Chachamim, you could be going against the halacha. But halacha, there's so many different ways of looking at halacha.
No, if you don't have the credentials, and for example, I don't have the credentials to Pascal. Okay, I can't say, well, I think I'm going to do it like this. I think I'm going to do it like that. See, what Reb Shlomo is saying is that every yid can potentially acquire them. But just because I can potentially acquire something, doesn't mean I already have it.
However, you said Torah Shabbal Peh, Shabbat Mabinu, right?
Yeah, but I was talking
Maybe
about
everyone
people,
needs to do Torah Shabbal Peh.
But I'm talking about, in other words, if you do what Avraham Avinu did, and you are totally free of the slightest form of bribery, and you are totally, your nefesh elokit is totally in charge of your being. All your decisions are being made strictly on the basis of nefesh elokit, and your nefesh bahamit, your animal soul, goes along with your nefesh elokit and not only doesn't object to what your neshama wants, but is a willing contributor and partner to what your neshama wants, and you reach that level, we'll call you Shaya Avinu too. Okay, you understand? It's
So then what does Torah Shabbal Peh mean for the individual today?
Sit down. It means that you got to sit down and become a Talmud Chacham, for starters. And then when you start learning and become a Talmud Chacham, you already know the answer to that question that you're asking. It's like, you know, like there's like, you know, the conservative movement took the attitude of, well, you know, like there's this opinion and there's that opinion, so so they went on this, what they themselves call it, the slippery slope. And if you look at where the conservative movement was back in the 50s, and you look at where they are today, and it's not such a long time, the rabbis today would say, wow, they were so frum. Seriously. You know? And like the first thing that anyway, I don't want to go into talking about that. There's better things to talk about. But if you start going, if anybody starts going with that kind of an approach, it ends up a big mess. Maybe you should close the window. They're running outside. If you have to, you can open to the other one. Okay. Good guys next door. Good guys. They're mamish learning. Yeah. Huh?
Great.
They're mamish learning. They started a smicha program. You're aware? Good guys. Okay. So there was one more. Like when the Lubavitch Rebbe started the Nerot Shabbat campaign, that all Jewish women and girls should light Shabbos candles, right? So there was so first of all, sources have been found for it. It wasn't a total chiddush. And in other words, it's not like there weren't communities in the past where unmarried girls were lighting Shabbos candles. But aside from that, but at the time it wasn't that well known, and somebody went to Reb Moshe Feinstein and asked him a shaila, like what do you have to say about this? This is not found in Shulchan Aruch. This is not the widespread Jewish practice, and so on. And I remember seeing the letter because it was printed in the Yiddish paper. And Reb Moshe Feinstein answered, yes, there's no reason in halacha that unmarried girls should be lighting Shabbos candles. However, if I remember the words correctly, Reb Moshe Feinstein was sort of saying like the Rebbe is sort of like the Novi of the generation. And if he feels this is what Am Yisrael needs to be doing now, this is what's important for the Yidden to do, Reb Moshe Feinstein says he accepts it. Understand? So there you have an issue of like halacha versus like somebody with ruach hakodesh, and what needs to be done now. Okay? So we're in the second line on 119, right? אברהם אבינו הגיע למדרגה הגבוהה ביותר של אי ידיעה בעקדת יצחק. Avraham Avinu had reached the highest level of not knowing at Akedat Yitzchak. What's pshat? In other words, the test that Avraham Avinu had with Akedat Yitzchak was not just, are you willing to offer up your son? That itself wasn't really the essence of the test, because never in those days, the Torah warns us against not adopting practices from other religions, and it says that they one of the things that they would do is they would put they would sacrifice children, right? So what was the big test? The real big test is that Hashem asked Avraham Avinu to do something which was totally against anything in any way that he understood Hashem until then. It was totally against his personality, because Abraham's personality was chesed, and it was totally against, like, Hashem promised him a son. Hashem said to him, Ki bi Yitzchak yikarei lecha zara, that Yitzchak is going to be your offspring, and his understanding of God was that Hashem would never want something like this, right? As a matter of fact, like one of the questions that's raised in the Akedah is, how did Avraham Avinu know that the test was to actually sacrifice Yitzchak? Maybe the test was that he should have said no. Good question, eh?
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't ask me. Because, okay, but it's a good question, right? And I don't have a logical answer for it, okay? The only thing I can see, because everybody's also asking, wait a minute, for Sodom and Amorah, you're praying, right? Why don't you pray for Yitzchak? Why don't you say to Rebbeinu Shalom, please, I don't understand, how could you possibly do this, and so on and so on. So the answer is, that this is the answer that Reb Shlomo is giving over here. If you get it, or if you don't get it, you just have to meditate on it, is that Avraham Avinu had reached the highest level of not knowing. In other words, the test was, are you ready to accept that you really don't know? Okay. Now, so what about Sodom and Amorah? So why didn't Abraham just say, okay, God, this is what you want to do, just say it, right? Just like Noach didn't argue about the Mabul, right? Because there, it's dealing with somebody else. When it comes to somebody else, don't be so frum. You know what I mean? Be frum. Don't worry. No. But what I mean is when it comes to somebody else, don't be so devout. When Hashem doesn't need you to be his lawyer to the other person. Hashem would rather that you be this person's lawyer and not God's lawyer. Hashem can take care of himself. Can plead on behalf of the other person. But when it comes to your own self, if Hashem is demanding, something of us personally that is beyond, okay, that's the Akedah. Avraham Avinu is being asked to do something that is mamish, totally against everything that he knew about Hashem. Okay. Now, where do you go when you go beyond not knowing? In other words, what domain are you entering?
Faith.
That's where you're really entering into Emunah. That's where you're really entering into faith. Okay? Because so long as I know that, quote unquote, just know that there's a God, then all I know is as much as my intelligence allows me to know about God. But being of this world, my intelligence is limited. Right? Like the Kosker Rebbe once said, a God that I could understand, I don't want to worship. Because if you can understand Hashem, then Hashem is no bigger than your brain. Right? And that's it. So the whole thing is to know as much as you possibly can, to understand as much as you possibly can. And thereby you get to the edge of human capacity, and to go further, even though you don't really know what's further, but you know that there's more. You know that there's something further. And there you enter through faith. Okay?
Not like Yishmael, like not comprehensible. You can't comprehend something anymore.
Yeah.
But if you're still comprehending that you can't comprehend, doesn't that mean that you're still comprehending something?
No, because you know that there's something there, but you know that you've reached your limit. So what is it over there? Exactly. Take that one off. It's too small. Just take it off now. Just leave it there. Thank you. But the idea is that you're relating to Hashem in a way that is deeper than intelligence. Okay? But it's not stupidity. Understand? Some stupidity is stupidity. Okay? Right? We're not talking about superstition, we're not talking about stupidity, we're talking about intelligent people, right? And go to the edge of your intelligence, just the process of his boniness, right? And from there, you realize, wow, there's so much more. Okay? So he says, Lo hakol anachnu yodim b'chayim. We're in the third line. We don't know everything in life. Sometimes it looks like everything is against us. Right? אבל בעקדת יצחק, אברהם הרגיש שלא רק שהכל נגדו, at the Akedah, Avraham Avinu felt that not only is everything against him, אלא גם השם כביכול נגדו. It looks like even God is against him. He made him a promise, he's going to have a son, he's going to be Yitzchak, he's going to inherit him, right? He'll be his progeny. And now he's taking all that back. So he says, Zohi Akedat Yitzchak. That's what Akedat Yitzchak is about. כשנראה שהשם רוצה שיעשה משהו שהוא לגמרי נגדי. It's Hashem it's when we see that God is asking me to do something that is totally against myself. And nevertheless, or despite that, אני מוכן לעשות, I'm ready to do it. Where did we get the strength to do something that is seemingly against me? That strength comes from the deep knowledge that God is talking specifically, uniquely to me, nishmati, to the depths of my soul. Okay, now be careful with this, right? Because there are people that like this can be borderline chas v'shalom, borderline insanity in some sense, some people think God is speaking to them and that they got to go out and do something terrible, chas v'shalom. So don't extrapolate this. Understand? Don't take this to mean like, oh, I'm hearing voices telling me to do this. Go see a psychiatrist. Okay. Don't go in a way that's chas v'shalom dangerous to yourself or to anybody else. Okay. But in this question that we raised before, like how did Abraham know what Hashem really wanted him to do? Right. The only answer that I really have after years of trying to figure this out is that he knew. He just knew that Hashem was mamish talking to him. Okay? They have one of the not so uncommon psychiatric illnesses here in Yerushalayim. They call it Jerusalem syndrome. Did you ever hear about it? As people think that they're Mashiach. You know what the fastest cure they have for that? They put them on a bus and they send them to Tel Aviv. You Mashiach? Okay, let's go to Tel Aviv and let's convince everybody. By the time the bus gets to Tel Aviv, they're already usually cured. Not Mashiach anymore. But there is, there are times where there's such intense kedusha in the air and in the surroundings and so on. You can start thinking, wow, I never had such a deep experience in my life with my whole Yiddishkeit, etc., and you can delude yourself. Listen, the Yetzer Hara is very clever. The Yetzer Hara is very subtle, very clever. Can get people to do all kinds of crazy things. So, you understand? It's important to be, here in this world, to be normal. There was a girl that was coming here to the Tanya classes a couple of years ago, and we were learning something very deep in the Tanya, and she said her parents were always in those deep meditations. I said to her, so that means that you didn't get breakfast every day? She said, that's right. They were so what's milk? What's breakfast? They were just constantly up there, and they were forgetting about, excuse me, you have a daughter, can you please give her breakfast? So go on the journey, go and relate to Hashem really, really deeply, but don't forget, you're living in this world and we have to be a mensch. Okay, so but there are times when it's clear to a person that Hashem is talking to me, and we learned a similar thing last week when Reb Shlomo was quoting from the son of the Kotzker in a sefer that he wrote about Eretz Yisrael, and he said over there that when it comes to moving to Eretz Yisrael, don't ask other people for their opinion. If you feel the calling to move to Eretz Yisrael, don't. Hashem is talking to you, and go. Okay. So again, there there are times where you have to just say, well, wait a minute, halacha doesn't agree that I should do this. And that's the dilemma that we mentioned yesterday in the Mishnah. Imein ani li mili, cheshani la'atzmi ma'ani, v'imlo achshav matai. So, aren't you happy you're living in a world where you don't know exactly what to do in every situation? Thank God. You know, thank God that Hashem has left a few things for us to work on. You know. So, Harabi Mishbitzer Omer Torah Amukad. Mishbitzer says a very deep teaching. Kisha menaseh otanu. When God is testing us, Hu lokeach meitanu et kol ma she'anachnu yodim. This is not just the Ishbitzer. You got to go. Or you have by Tuesdays. You got to go early. Right. It's raining, eh?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Be careful. Yeah.
thank you. I have my rain tires.
You have your rain tires.
I got everything. Good. That's the way I didn't, but I was lucky.
Okay. So the Ishbitzer says, and this is also found in other Hasidic forum too, in the Baal Shem Tov and so on, that when Hashem is testing you, it's a funny thing. Hashem takes away everything that you know. In other words, like, you find yourself tested, and just yesterday you were learning, and you were having such deep learning, and it was so clear to you that you love Hashem, and that you're always going to do what Hashem wants, and so on and so on. And then today you're faced with a test, and it's like you can't seem to access that clear, strong connection with Hashem, and it's so hard to overcome the test right now. Right? See you tomorrow, Miss Hashem. Okay, cultive. Right? So why is that? And the reason is because at the time of the test, all that quote unquote knowledge is taken away. Why? You've got experience with this, huh?
I
see
feel like
it.
then we're in the state of insanity. It's not our fault. If our knowledge is taken away.
But if our knowledge is there, then it's not really a test. Maybe.
But if your knowledge is there, it's not really a test.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not really in a state of insanity, not totally good. Okay? But it's definitely very, very difficult. Right? Okay, so he says like this. הוא לוקח מאיתנו כל מה שאנחנו יודעים. כשהשם מנסה אותנו, הוא לוקח מאיתנו את כל מה שאנחנו יודעים, God can do everything that we already know. אנחנו מתרוקנים לגמרי. We sort of are emptied completely. ולכן אברהם אבינו ביקש מהשם, and that's why Abraham Avinu asked Hashem, אל תנסה אותי עוד. Please God, don't test me anymore. בבקשה, עשה שזה יהיה הניסיון האחרון שלי. Please God, let this be my last test. הוא התחנן, he was begging, אני לא יכול לחיות בלי הידיעה האלוקית העמוקה הזאת. I can't live without deep knowledge of your presence. כשאני רואה שהכל מתנגד לה, when I see everything is going against my knowledge of you, אני זקוק לה כל כך בכל רגע ורגע, I need my connection with you at every moment, right? So, כך שרדנו בגלות הארוכה. This is how we survived the long golus. למרות שריבונו של עולם החריב את בית המקדש והגלה אותנו מהארץ, despite the fact that God destroyed the Beis Hamikdash and exiled us from Eretz Yisrael, ושוב אנחנו רצים חזרה לירושלים, and we keep on coming back to Yerushalayim, הכוח לזה בא מן העקדה. The ability to do this comes from the Akedah. In other words, of having to know and opened up the gate for connecting with Hashem when we don't know. Okay. And I mentioned it this morning to someone. There's a story that Eli Wiesel brings that one afternoon in Auschwitz, three Rabbonim, three Dayanim sat down and made a beit din, and they put God on trial. And they ruled, the conclusion they came to was that they could not find Hashem innocent. Okay? Is the river coming up to the door already? Not yet? It's still, huh? If it's not, I have to open it up there, but okay, if it's not coming in yet, it's okay. And then it was time for Mincha. Did they get up to daven Mincha? They got up and they davened Mincha. You just came up with such a ruling, and now you're davening Mincha. And the pshat is that what they were saying was that on the level of yedi'ah, of knowledge, of what we know about Hashem, of what we understand about Hashem through what we've learned in the Torah, through what we learned in Shulchan Aruch, we cannot justify this. But Hashem is still Hashem. Hashem is more than my knowledge. Okay? And that's what Avraham Avinu broke. He broke that barrier that made it possible for us to recognize that I don't really know Hashem. I know a lot about Hashem, but there's so much more that I just don't know. And there's a whole level of connecting to Hashem beyond knowledge. Okay? So, Ne'emar Etzel Avraham Avinu, Vayavram Avinu says, Vayaret HaMakom Merachok. I just, see, we're at the bottom of an incline, and if I don't open up the trap there,
You guys remember this? Nope. Didn't that? Yeah. Did you think of that? It was like how sunny and like when you're there, fun.
be careful when you walk out if you don't step in the wrong place. Okay, so Ne'emar Etzel Avraham Avinu Vayaret HaMakom Merachok. He saw the place from far. Right? That's in the Akedah. He saw the mountain from afar. And at the Akedah, where did the Akedah take place? The Akedah took place on Har HaMoriah, which is Har HaBayit. Right? That's where the Akedah took place. Klomar hu ra'at Yerushalayim, et Har HaMoriah, and he saw it merachok. He saw it from far. Zeh hakoach shenatan lanu Avraham Avinu. This is the strength that we got from Avraham Avinu, right? When we call somebody our father, it means that we've inherited from him both physical and spiritual genes. So shafilu kishashem machik otanu kiviyachol. Even when Hashem, so to speak, is distancing us, einenu yecholim lahasir et mabatenu miYerushalayim. We still can't take our eyes off Yerushalayim. So that's the this is an essential point to know that, and this is one of the, like, the just to put it in different words. For example, the Sfat said only the Jewish people are the ones who are capable of saying, "Hoidu Lashem ki toiv ki le'olam chazkei." Give thanks to God for He is good. Ki le'olam. Even the word olam is from the word helen, which means concealment. Even in the concealment, we know that it's all His chesed, right? I don't know if you saw this, but a couple of years ago, there were people walking around with a T-shirt with a listing of all the various civilizations, and each one had an X next to it, and the only one that didn't have an X next to it was the Jewish civilization. You know, matter of fact, there's what was his name? This British historian Arnold Toynbee, who published a six. You should know this. No? Anyway, he died a number of years ago. He was a famous historian, and he published a 6-volume history of all civilizations, except he didn't include the Jewish people. And back in the 60s, Israel's foreign minister, the ambassador to the United Nations, was also a Jew from Britain. His name was Abba Eban. He was a master speaker, orator, and he challenged, you probably can listen to it online, he challenged Toynbee to a debate. And the question you put to Toynbee is, how could you leave out the Jews from a world history of civilizations? And Toynbee's answer was, because he did not consider he says the Jewish people in his view are not a historical people. Meaning to say, every civilization, it starts at some point in time, it rises and finally eventually reaches a peak, and eventually it goes into a decline and disappears. And he says the history of the Jews is like, we started at a certain point, got up to a certain point, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, but we're still here. And to him, we are therefore an ahistorical people. Okay? But that's, and there's, doesn't mean that he shouldn't have included us in his book of history, because like, but regardless, the point is a good point. What happened to all these other big civilizations and religions and so on? Once they were defeated, they basically disappeared. Right? And we're still here. And that's, by the way, one of the deeper reasons why the Arabs are not making peace with us is because, according to their beliefs and what they've been taught over the years, we were never supposed to come back. Okay? They consider themselves to have replaced us, as did the Christians. You know, if that's why the church to this day spends over $30 million a year just to try to convert Jews. Because
Really?
yeah,
I didn't know that was still like an objective.
It's in there because they used to call themselves the New Hebrews, and they had the New Testament, and we had, and they were the new chosen people. And so long as we're around, that contradicts that belief, right? So some have made peace with the fact that they weren't right. Others still others still work at it. Okay, so this is this is this is the beginning of the Akedah. So now Rav Steinfeld says, since you're all not running into the rain, we'll continue for a few minutes, and you're welcome to wait it out. So Avraham Avinu was tested 10 times, right? So presumably, it makes a lot of sense to say that each test was more difficult than the previous one, right? Otherwise, why, if number 5 is easier than number 4, then why bother giving test number 5, right? So which is the last test? The last test is not the Akedah. The last test is when Sarah Imenu dies. Avraham Avinu has to go and do a business deal with Ephron to buy the Me'oras HaMachpelah, and has to pay a lot of money for it, and he bows down to the people of the land a few times. So how is that a test compared to the Akedah? So Rav Steinsaltz explains that there's different kinds of tests. There's a test where it's like a once and only once test. It's a huge test, but you know why you're doing it, and you gather your energies and you say, I'm ready, I'm doing it, and zehu, it's over. Okay? It's like the Akedah. It was like huge. The Medrash says that it took Avraham Avinu 3 days till he got to Har HaMoriah, and that the Satan kept on showing up in all kinds of ways. On one occasion, the Satan shows up as a as a raging storm and a dangerous, high-powered river. And then at one point, the Satan shows up as a wise old man that tells Avraham Avinu, tomorrow the world is going to say that you committed a murder, etc. All kinds of psychological and religious barriers to fulfilling the Akedah. So you would imagine that after the Akedah, what could possibly be a bigger test than that? And particularly, so Sarah dies, so people die, and he has to go and buy a plot of land. So Rav Shlomo says, if you hear of Chinese torture, there's a particular Chinese torture where you take a person and you just have water drip on their head, drop, 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 drop. And people who've withstood greater tests break down under Chinese torture.
Well, if you also go like this a lot of times, it starts being very painful.
It's not that it's so much the pain, it's just that it just doesn't stop.
Yeah.
It's annoying, Give you an example. We were learning about it this morning. Everybody knows about Machshavat Zarot, unless I'm talking to 5 Tzadkaliyot here. Right? When you daven, you get invaded by other thoughts, right? It happens frequently, probably almost every time that we daven, right? And what happens for many people is that when they still go to daven, but they sort of just accept that it's going to be full of machshavot zavot. And I hope that I'll say one sentence with real kavanah, right? Why did we give up the struggle? Why did we give up the struggle to really daven with real kavanah, like from beginning to end? Because we got worn down by the fact that it happens again and again and again and again and again and again and again, and that breaks you. Understand? So in that sense, the last test that Avraham Avinu, after the Akedah, I still have a test. You know what I mean? I still have something to overcome. I still have to deal with what's going on in this world, right? So that's a very difficult thing, and he tells a story there that this is like very unusual, but there was a Lubavitcher Chassid who ended up shmadding. He shmad to the religion of the Russians, and he ended up being the chief censor. That there was a time in these countries that Jews couldn't publish a sefer unless it went through the censorship, because they were afraid that there might be something written there against the church or against Yoshka. This guy became the chief censor for the church, for the government. And even 40 years later, after he had shmat, if he was going to say something about the Alter Rebbe, he first would do the Tzivat Yadayim. He was like, at one point in his life, he was so connected with the Alter Rebbe that he wouldn't even mention his name without washing his hands first. So why did he shmat? What happened is that he was living in poverty. And the Jews weren't allowed into the big cities like Petersburg and so on. But there was no work where he was living. He had to feed his family, so he kept on sneaking into the city, and he would keep on getting caught and expelled and punished or whatever. And this happened again and again and again, and that broke him. The same person who was so fiercely attached to the Alter Rebbe, it was the drop by drop by drop by drop by drop that broke him. So what do you do? Like, what's the eitzah? How do you combat that? Well, there's a number of eitzot, and one of them is humor is a good thing. Sometimes you just need a good joke to just break that cycle of I can't take this anymore. Rashi comes home one night for supper, and his wife is serving him the soup, and he says, very tasty, a little bit on the peppery side. And she serves him the chicken. And he says, oh, this is perfect. This is excellent. Wow, maybe a little bit more onions. And she says, Rashi, do you always have to comment? So sometimes you need to just plain and simple, let's hear a good joke. They were telling me the Chachamim in the Gemara that before they started the shir, they would tell a joke. Okay? In other words, sometimes Torah just wants you to keep on saying, oh, I'm being tested again, I'm being tested again, I'm being tested again, and that's part of his strategy to break us, And so Reb Nachman says, sometimes just shut the door, turn on the music, get on the table, and dance. And in other words, sometimes you just have to do something like out of the usual to just get out of that mind cycle, that mind trip that's going on, around and around and around and around and so on. So you never know, right? That's the whole thing that Reb Shlomo said. What does it mean that man is created in God's image? What does it mean that everybody should have up there has like ears and eyes and nose? What does it mean that man's created in God's image? Well, one of the answers is the same way that you don't know God, you don't know the capabilities of another yet. That guy that you think is just like a nobody, that guy might be the one that's going to save all of Am Yisrael. You don't know. Right? Man is in the image of God. You don't know God, and you don't know the koiches that a yid has. A yid has tremendous koiches. Okay, so are you all aware that Thursday morning we're having a Yom Yun for Reb Shlomo's Yotzeit? We're starting with a shir by Emunah Witz, and then there's another one by Judy and myself, and then there's Ras Haran, and followed by Simcha Achbam. It's going to go till 1 o'clock, and then many of us are going to go up to Har Menachot to the Kever, for Mincha, for the Yotzeit. Zchuto Yagin Aleinu and all the tzaddikim, they should, bring us protection and blessing, and
It's Tesla.
huh?
It's Tesla in Cheshvan.
There's Yom Chamishi. Okay.
Thank you.
There's going to be a